Guess what? These bat wings, they're not just fat wings. They might be the biggest clue that lipedema is not what we have been told it is. What if this isn't a fat problem at all, but your immune system turning against you from the inside? I'm Sharrell, coming to you from beautiful Ajijic, Mexico, where I live with my husband, Andy, and my seizure alert dog, Sebastian. And for me, this topic, lipedema, it's not theoretical, it's personal. It's the reason I'm doing this work. So buckle up because I'm about to nerd out big time. But by the end, you will see lipedema and your own body in a completely different light. In 2022, researchers discovered something that should have exploded across the lipedema community, but it didn't. And it's nearly a year later, and there's just crickets. And it's shocking to me because what they found flipped the old theory completely on its head. They found lipedema isn't just a fat storage problem, but an immune system disorder. And then in February 2025, other researchers reviewed all the new data and asked a question in the publication Biomedicines that stopped me cold. They asked, when it comes to lipedema, are the very immune cells meant to heal going rogue instead? And that's what's triggering lipedema. That's a seismic shift in how we understand lipedema. And it should have been front page news, but it wasn't. And because my journalist turned lawyer turned judge, Asperger's brain won't let me unsee what I saw, I'm done waiting. This needs to get to you now because this discovery could completely change how we approach this brutal, progressive disease. So I'm going to break down the science. I'm going to connect the dots that blow up the old theory. And I'm going to preview my plan to test whether this new information can change everything. My goal is to open up a conversation and start collecting real-world data with you. 4 years ago, I was in a doctor's office in Athens because 6 of my fingers were splitting open, throbbing, and bleeding. And it was a condition I had fought for 20 years, but I needed help. And during the most thorough physical that I'd ever had, as she examined my arms and legs, she asked me, "Why aren't you wearing compression garments?" And I was like, And she said, "With your stage 2 creeping into stage 3 lipedema and lymphedema." I had never heard of either condition. So she said, in addition to compression, I needed to start whole foods, keto, immediately. And I left the appointment so overwhelmed and just blown away. And I gave it some thought, and I thought I was making the best choice possible because we were living in the Mediterranean. So I was eating the Mediterranean diet, olive oil, Greek salads every day, whole grains and rice, grilled fish and veggies, chicken, the gold standard, right? Wrong. I had no clue how inflamed my body was, and what I thought was going to heal me was actually fueling the fire. And my split fingers, that was the loudest cry from my body for help. Then 3 years ago, desperate after my biggest genes split down both inner thighs, I tried Carnivore. In 7 months in, my fingers healed. My migraines and lifelong depression were gone. All my joint pain was gone. Andy and I both of us lost 70 pounds, and we were off all our medications, even the antidepressants. But being the sugar and processed carb addicts that we are, we dove right back into that carb ditch at an anniversary dinner, and we stayed there 18 months. The migraines and depression came back, the joints were screaming, 50 pounds packed right back on, and my fingers split open again, because addiction is powerful. And standing here today, I can declare we have clawed our way back out of the ditch into carnivore. We're clean almost 90 days, and our weight's heading back down the scale. The joint pain and migraines and depression are all significantly decreasing. But here's what shocked me. On the way back down the scale, I hit a weight that I had hit up a year ago, and I compared the measurements. And even though my waist is a full inch smaller, my arms are an inch and a half bigger, and they have more twists. And both thighs are 2 inches bigger and are now twisting. My calves and ankles are an inch bigger. The same weight, a completely different body. While I was back in the carb ditch consuming sugar and processed carbs, my lipedema was quietly progressing. And that shock, those measurements, it woke me up out of my denial. This is a progressive disease. And that's when this new research suddenly made everything click for me and why I'm here telling it to you, because it might finally explain what's driving these changes in our bodies. Before we dig in, though, I created a free guide called The Body Warning System Your Doctor Never Taught You. It has 3 checklists for inflammation, hidden carb and sugar addiction, and lipedema and lymphedema. So drop checklists in the comments for the link if you think your body could be crying out for help, like mine was. So what did these researchers find that changes everything? And why is no one talking about it? Back in December 2022, Wolf and colleagues published groundbreaking findings in Frontiers in Immunology. They found that lipedema fat isn't just bigger, it's biologically different, packed with immune cells called M2 macrophages. Normally, these guys, they calm inflammation and repair tissue after damage. They found in lipedema, though, they are reprogrammed and they signal fat cells to keep growing instead of healing. So when you combine that with lymphatic dysfunction, poor drainage, it's like a janitor who piles garbage everywhere when the trash chute's broken. The study even showed that blocking those rogue cells with a compound called IPI 549 stopped the fat growth in lab models. So I want you to think about that. When they targeted immune cells, fat growth stopped. Fast forward to February 2025, Biomedicines published a major review asking, lipedema, a disease triggered by M2 polarized macrophages. And their conclusion was that the 2022 findings held up. And evidence kept pouring in about immune malfunction, especially around the M2 macrophages. That's the driver. Think of it this way. M1 macrophages are your Navy SEALs. They attack invaders. M2, they're your doctor janitors, and they clean up afterwards. But in lipedema, the janitors go rogue. They keep shouting, grow more fat, and they never stop. As the disease progresses, inflammation can flip back over to the M1 dominance, and that adds the pain and fibrosis on top of the swelling. And that is why our arms and legs hurt, why blood pressure cuffs feel like torture, why we bruise for no reason. So we now know lipedema isn't a fat storage problem. It's a chronic immune misfire. Research that could revolutionize treatment for millions of women somehow is buried. And like I said, I was tired of waiting for it to come out. So I nerded out. I searched every corner of the internet as of yesterday for any discussions of the research from the 2022 breakthrough all the way through the 2025 review. Blogs, podcasts, YouTubes, patient groups, science communicators. I even asked AI to go deep and see if I missed anything. All that they found was a brief mention in the Lipedema Foundation's 2023 research roundup, a little blog post in August 2025, and a few science citations. But you know what they didn't find? No YouTube videos explaining it, no advocacy groups translating it, no science reporters connecting the dots. As a former journalist, this infuriates me. I watch thousands of women in Facebook groups debating diets, compression gear, surgery, And not once all year have I seen anyone mention these findings. So we're going to change that. And if you're with me so far, hit that thumbs up so YouTube knows this information matters, because thousands of women need to see it. Everything we've done to treat lipedema, we have been mopping the floor, but the pipe has been spewing water because it's still broken. This new take exposes what endocrinologist Dr. Robert Lustig has been warning us for years about, that modern medicine is all about treating symptoms, not causes. Lipedema was labeled a fat disorder, so we treated the fat. Compression, drainage, liposuction. But fat accumulation was never the disease itself, just the symptom. The real disease is the immune system sending the wrong signals. You can mop all day, but the water's going to keep coming. We treat high blood pressure instead of what's causing the high blood pressure, which is metabolic dysfunction. We treat high blood sugar instead of the inflammation causing it. The rogue immune response is causing the lipedema. And in his book, Metabolical, Dr. Lustig says that burst pipe is being caused by processed food. So the real question that's been troubling me is, lipedema isn't classified as autoimmune, but women have it. Triple the rate of autoimmune thyroiditis and markers for celiac disease. Maybe it isn't autoimmune technically, but it's clearly immune mediated. Something has gone haywire. And I'm not saying diet causes the condition, but the correlation deserves somebody's attention. If lipedema is rising right alongside other immune conditions, and all of them track with the standard processed food diet, then maybe we need to stop focusing on compression, massage, or surgery until we take a hard look at the trigger. What's on our plates? When metabolism breaks down from years of processed food, sugar, and causes insulin resistance, that dysfunction keeps the immune system confused. The chain looks like this: processed food, metabolic syndrome, immune dysfunction, rogue into macrophages. Then the abnormal fat growth. And that's why I'm doing this video, because if lipedema isn't a fat disorder, we need to recognize that it's showing hallmark flags as a metabolic disease. And fixing the fat was never going to work. We got to fix our metabolism first and calm the immune system from the inside out. Stop it, then address the fat. Yesterday, a new member in one of my lipedema groups on Facebook posted that she had just been diagnosed with stage 1 and she was going to set up surgery right away. That's what the doctor told her that she needed to do, was cut it out, and that she'd be okay. And the admin gently explained that lipedema is progressive. Surgery can set the clock back, as we all know, but it's not going to stop the clock. And that hit me so hard, because what if we could? What if it could stop the clock? Not slow it, but stop it. If it can be reprogrammed and those cells respond to diet, then maybe we can calm them down before the surgery, halt the progression. So your measurements stop increasing, the pain would stabilize, the nodules wouldn't get worse, and then we could consider it paused. And with surgery, then we don't have progression. So the surgery could become a permanent solution like this person thought, instead of just a setting back of the clock. Most lipedema advice, as you know, focuses on keto, low carb, moderate protein, higher fat. Even my doctor told me. And I think, hang on, but it could even be harmful. First, oxalates, spinach, almonds, almond flour, dark chocolate. Keto staples are loaded with oxalates. They're sharp crystals that trigger inflammation. Sally Norton, author of Toxic Superfoods, reports that liposuction surgeons have found oxalate crystals in lipedema tissue during surgery. suggesting oxalates could worsen inflammation. The second problem, the addiction loop. Many of us are sugar and carb addicts, and the keto industry exploits that. Keto-approved snacks are the non-alcoholic beer of the food world, and they keep us hooked keep our cravings alive. So addiction is a problem. And then keto's cheat meals is problem 3 because cycling us reignites the inflammation every time we cycle, elevates our insulin, and is locking that fat away, including the lipedema. So we can keto harder, but the insulin resistance is going to keep those macrophages saying, grow more fat, more fat. And we've already seen we haven't been able to halt the progression with keto. So that's where I came up with my carnivore hypothesis. So when I was looking at all this, nerding out about what the research shows and what my body is proving, I feel rogue immune cells are triggered by processed food and plant toxin. And keto does not eliminate either. So the most anti-inflammatory metabolism healing approach for lipedema is carnivore, in my opinion. 0 carbs, 0 plants, 0 processed food. Reverse insulin resistance altogether. You have to stop spiking the insulin, and keto does that. And then we can calm that dysfunction. No oxalates, no lectins, no phthalates. To break food addiction as well, to cut that roller coaster of dopamine, because keto treats really tanked me 5 years ago. And so I know for me, keto is not the answer, but carnivore hits every root issue: insulin resistance, inflammation, and addiction. So you're asking, that sounds really extreme. And honestly, I thought the same thing until I saw what happened in my own body on carnivore. I'm not skipping through keto out of impatience, because I've done 40 years of less extreme. In my 20s and 30s, I was Weight Watchers, Jenny Craig, Cambridge shakes. The lipedema was progressing. In my 40s, the Zone Diet, the Atkins, the South Beach, progression with lipedema. In my 50s, Bright Line Eating, a doctor keto program, more progression. I developed a binge eating disorder. So, like I said, 2 years ago, carnivore, everything shrunk. My measurement shrunk. My migraines went off. My depression went off. Everything, my pain. So now, I'm stage 4 lipedema after that carb ditch. And carnivore is what I'm going to test because it worked before, and I believe it's going to work again. We've been taught plant foods are essential, but if your immune system, like mine, overreacts to plant compounds, if you have severe insulin resistance and food addiction, the most therapeutic diet is not the one with variety like keto. It's the one that removes all the triggers. And that isn't extreme, it's precise. If you're newly diagnosed and you're catching it early, you can try keto. But I'm telling you, I'd go straight to carnivore if I could go back and tell myself, because I would want to stop the progression as quickly as possible. Those 2 inches on my thighs at the same weight, that is huge progression in just 18 months. And now, I'm not a doctor and I'm not giving you medical advice. You need to work with your own provider. There's no research, and there may never be because there's no profit. Dr. Kinberry and others have reported from treating hundreds of thousands of patients on carnivore that they have reduced all kind of autoimmune diseases. Now, I know this doesn't prove anything about lipedema, but my body gave me a clue because after 7 months, like I said, my fingers were healed after 20 years of splitting, gone. And when I went back in the carb ditch, they split open again. That was my real world evidence that food can change immune behavior. Here's what I have planned next. I'm going to track what I call the N of 1 experience. I'm the first data point, N equals 1. And in 90 days, you'll see my first results. Measurements, photos, all the photos, symptom tracking, pain, bruising, my nodules, swelling, and whether I'm starting to see anything. No excuses. If it works, you could be N 2 or N equals 3. We need to build data. Andy and I are going to keep documenting our carnivore journey weekly on this channel, our addiction recovery, and when we hit maintenance, our strategies. So if you have lipedema, you likely share the same sensitive carnivore-connected genes, insulin resistance, and food addiction that we do. It's all connected. Lipedema, addiction, immune dysfunction, and inflammation. We're addressing it all upstream together. And I want you to join us and share this video in your lipedema groups. And please comment with your experience. What foods flare you? What helped you? Have you tried carnivore? And be sure and drop checklists in the comments to get my free guide. Every source that I cited is in the description with links, because this isn't about hacks or hope or marketing. It's about women like me taking control of our data and building an open source experiment for a disease that has been ignored too long, even by the lipedema experts. So if you've been told your pain is just fat, your rippled arms are just cellulite, you deserve better than that. And maybe, just maybe, we are finally on to real solutions. So let's figure this out together.